Good evening. I would like to call December 19, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. I would like to point out that the meeting is being hosted through live stream on the city website and by Zoom teleconference. I'd like to remind the commissioners to have their microphones turned on in position so that the audience can hear. Director Monique, may we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Clark,
Present.
Commissioner Ochoa.
Here.
Commissioner Hill is absent with notice. Vice Chair Papp,
Here.
Chair Beamsterfer,
Here. Vice Chair Papp, can we do invocation and flag salutes?
Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. We thank you for the weather. We pray for some rain, but please not too much. I would just like to ask at this time that you be with us, guide us this evening as we review these projects before us, and ask that everybody have a healthy, safe, and happy holiday season. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. You place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number 4 is a public comment period for items not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public present that would like to comment on an item not on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. I don't see or show anyone online wanting to speak, nor did I receive any e-comments. Thank
Not
you.
on Zoom, okay. Agenda item number 5, receive and file for determination of use of 23-001. Director Monique.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission and the community. My name is Monique Alanese Flater, Community Development Director. This item before you is a presentation, determination of use 23-001. We received an application by Pacific Mobile Structures, Inc. They have a conditional use permit that was submitted in 2021 and to carry out operations that include light manufacturing, assembly, storage, and service of off-site mobile office units in storage containers for rent and use by a variety of agencies such as school campuses, construction site, and government agencies. The property is located on the west side of Santa Fe Street and south of Oakwood Street. Surrounding land uses include the city of San Jacinto to the north and to the east, industrial, residential, and what appears to be mobile home park and multifamily development. Primarily to the north is industrial. Also the site of the schoolhouse manufacturing facility, which is located in the city of San Jacinto's jurisdiction. So this property is adjacent to the city of San Jacinto on the west side of Santa Fe and south of Oakwood Street. The property maintains a general plan land use designation of industrial. And the property that the applicant has submitted for includes 2 parcels of land, which have, differing zones. One of the smaller portions of the property is zoned commercial manufacturing. The larger portion of the property is M2, heavy manufacturing. In evaluating the application, it was brought to my attention that the uses that are listed in the zoning land use table, they are very similar, but are not explicit for the proposed operation and uses of the development. So this item would come to you in the future as a conditional use permit. And at the last council meeting, we provided the city council with a presentation on the determination of use, which I will explain shortly. And at that time, staff, the city manager was directed to prepare a zoning code amendment to include some changes to the zoning code so that the application would be would fit within the proposed application and the zone. So pursuant to 90-1481 and 90-3 of the Hemet Municipal Code, when a use is not specifically listed as a permitted use or conditional use under a particular zone, and when the classification is requested, the Director of Community Development shall determine whether the use is sufficiently similar to a listed use in the particular zone to justify with findings. Once the determination has been made, the director shall initiate an amendment to the zoning code. The findings that are required to facilitate this process is number 1, that the proposed use meets the objective of the zone. Number 2, that the proposed use and its operations are compatible with uses permitted in the zone. And the proposed use is similar to one or more uses in the zone. So the first parcel, and I'll kind of back up a little bit on the slide here. We're going to be speaking about parcel number 1. Parcel number 1 is 4.5 acres and it is commercial manufacturing. On parcel number 1, the applicant proposes off-site construction of modular units in a controlled factory environment, utilizing similar stick-built structure construction half the time through construction of units in modules. During the maintenance and repair operations, there would be a 13,743 square foot manufacturing and assembly building. The mobile units would undergo repair and remodeling after rental, return to prior building, placed back into a rental fleet. Now, this particular property does not allow outdoor storage. So from the assembly facility, the units ready for rental will be shifted to the outdoor storage and parking area until they return. And that would be on the property that is highlighted in purple. That is the heavy manufacturing M2 zone. So no outdoor storage would be permitted where I identified in red. Initial operations are not proposed in the first phase to include the manufacturing operations. They do have a 40,000 square foot phase 2 building that would be proposed. That would be a future phase, and it would be capable of conducting light manufacturing activities in support of operations. The reason why it's included in this discussion tonight is that we're also requiring them to analyze that for the Environmental Quality Act requirements. So on the commercial manufacturing, which is really primarily where the operations are going to be located, there would be standard maintenance activities within the facility, including cleaning units, touch-up paint, new flooring, and minor electrical HVAC repairs. Materials stored indoors at the site would consist of paint, cleaning supplies, flooring, sheetrock, and dimensional lumber. Materials would be stored on racks and on the building mezzanine. Once the warehouse is constructed, it would store various products that the company rents in conjunction with the rental units such as desks, chairs, and tables. Offices would also be included as part of the development. So on the commercial manufacturing side, when we look at the proposed use, there is not a specific language in there that would identify off-site construction of modular offices. There is a section of the code that says manufacture, assembly, display, and sales of modular homes, which brought me to the conclusion that it was necessary to bring this to the Planning Commission and the Council's attention, that this needs to be clarified in the code. The permitted uses in the commercial manufacturing zone that are similar include the manufacturing of modular homes, manufactured home sales with or without on-site display of models and inventory, assembly of small electronic cabinets, furniture, equipment, and similar materials with no outdoor storage, a miscellaneous manufacturing light, manufacturing jewelry, office supplies, cosmetics, sporting goods with no outdoor storage or operations, machine shops and with no outdoor storage operations, and distribution facilities, including not limited to bottled water, food products, prepackaged goods, and machinery. So with these uses that are currently permitted in that zone, they are similar and closely aligned with the proposed use. And then looking at the second parcel where the proposal is to return when the units are ready for rental, when the units are ready, they'll be shifted to the outdoor storage area, which will be the M2 zone property until they're returned. And looking at the storage of those mobile offices and storage units, the M2 does allow recreational vehicle storage, storage yard for contractor equipment and materials, and equipment rental. And in this case, it would be for the storage of offsite modular office units and storage units. With that, we are recommending, and as directed by the council, to make the proposed amendments to the code to include the allowance of manufacture, assembly, rental, and sale of offsite construction units in the commercial manufacturing zone that would be subject to a conditional use permit. So this project will come back to the Planning Commission as an actual project with development and environmental. The second amendment would include an allowance of storage yard for offsite construction of mobile units for sale and rental in conjunction with single tenant manufacturing and assembly facility. So that means that it would have to be tied to a manufacturing facility and not standalone. With that, this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Monique. Are there any questions from the commissioners or comments from the staff on this item?
Hey, Monique, my only question is that, just to be specific, just to be clear, we're just looking at amending the zoning just for something that's very, very similar, right?
Yes, that is
So
correct.
not specific, but very, very close.
That is correct.
Okay.
Initially, how did two pieces of property sitting right next to each other allow storage and not storage?
That's a good question. And so the commercial manufacturing is in the commercial class of zones, whereas they're both, the land use designation is industrial for both of them. So if you wanted to change the zone to industrial on the one that's commercial, you could potentially, I mean, or conceivably. However, commercial manufacturing is a little bit more restrictive than the M2 heavy manufacturing zone.
So, excuse me. I did send some issues and concerns to Ms. Flater earlier. Just wanted to make the staff and the commissioners and city attorney aware of that. I guess some of my questions and comments are more they're interrelated to the CUP project as well. So looking forward, I'm curious how these potential amendments might impact that development when it comes forward. So my understanding is that as far as the storage component goes, they're using cargo containers that range in size from about 8 feet by 7 by 8 to 8 feet by 40 feet. Your typical standard sort of seafaring cargo containers. Okay. I went to their website and I took a look at the way that they store these cargo containers, and I did notice that some of them are stacked. So I was curious to know whether or not that would be allowed. And if so, what is the height limit in the CM zone and the M2 zone?
Those are great questions. In looking at that, the building height can go up to 60 feet. However, we wouldn't, this is a great question for us to consider as we analyze how many, if the unit is going to be just one unit, or are they allowed to stack them? So that is a good question we're going to ask the applicant to address. And it is likely that we would not support multiple stacking. If it's completely visible, there could be some screening components to it as mitigation. There could be heavy screening, heavy landscaping that could support that, but we would also condition it as part of a conditional use permit, a maximum stacking height.
Great, thank you for that. Let's see, my next item that I had on my notes here is that the 4.5 acre parcel is in the CM zone, which allows for light manufacturing, warehousing, fabrication and assembly, service and repair to be ready for re-rental. Is that all basically correct? That would be the proposal of the CUP applicant's request.
That's right. That is correct. Warehousing, fabrication, service and repair to get rental units ready to re-enter the rental market. They would also be manufacturing the units. And yes, to prepare them, yes, and repair to prepare them to re-enter the rental market. That is correct.
Okay, I think that's a good use for that particular site. However, I have a question about whether or not storage on the 9 acre heavy industrial or the M2 site is the highest and best use. I was perhaps wondering if there might be some other component that could go onto that 9 acre site I don't know how much M2 zoning there is in the city. Wasn't able to go that far down the rabbit hole. But from what I recall, there's not a lot of industrial zone properties in the city. And if this use were to stay for a prolonged period of time, it might preclude higher and better development that might bring in additional jobs, higher paying jobs, skilled laborers, things like that. So I'm curious as to how long something like this might be in place. Would it be indefinite? Would there be some sort of time period associated with a conditional use permit?
The conditional use permit runs with the land until such time as it's no longer operated. So if it ceases to operate within a certain period of time, whether it be like 6 months or 90 days, or I have to look at what the code language is, then it would the conditional use permit would be ceased or could be revoked at that point in time. In this case, the property has been purchased by Pacific Mobile Structures. They're currently renting a facility in the city of Menifee and have chosen the city of Hemet to be their permanent location.
What would be their intention to relocate here?
It is my understanding they are relocating here.
That's good news. I read through the staff report and it did talk about the proposal that the applicant has, that they're proposing to build, I believe it's a 40,000 square foot building to manufacture these types of units. Is there a phasing plan? Is the storage going to come first and the building come later? And what assurances might we have that the building then gets built and that we don't just approve a storage yard that's going to be holding who knows how many units of cargo units? And if so, is there a limitation onto the number of cargo units they could put on there as opposed to construction offices or government buildings, things of that nature?
So, when this conditional use comes back, a site plan will be provided, and on the site plan, they have identified and closely, measured out, the bays for each unit. So it's almost an area that's designated for each unit, so we'll know how many units are there at any given time. It also provides for appropriate circulation throughout and the site property. It'll include screen fencing. We also evaluate the water quality and drainage and grading, all the improvements that are tied to this development. As part of the as part of the timeline and the phasing, they originally had the manufacturing building on the larger parcel, and they chose to place it on the commercial manufacturing portion. We would need to identify what their estimated timeline is. However, the initial stage of development will include the construction of a smaller manufacturing facility, which is approximately 12,000 square feet. Looking at my notes, but 12,000 square foot facility, including offices. So that will be their initial manufacturing or their assembly area and repair. So that will be in the first phase. The 40,000 square foot is now accounts for growth and expansion. But this is something that I would need to confer with the applicant.
Let's see. I think you already answered my next concern. So CUPs would be required for each of these uses, the manufacturing building and the storage. Are these going to be phased or built together? I guess you actually kind of touched on that. I'm sorry. My big concern with the actual project when it comes in is that we're just going to have a storage facility and not a manufacturing building. And I'm wanting to know, is there a way that we could build in a sunset clause perhaps if they haven't begun construction of the main building to fabricate these units within X number of years of the storage facility opening? Could we then either require that they come in with building permits at a certain time, or they would potentially risk losing their conditional use permit?
We would do that during the CUP though, correct? All those questions that he's asking, because
Yes.
we're just strictly on the
yeah,
zone and
Yeah.
the intent of what they want to do, but where they're placing their cargo containers, where they're placing the building, that'll all come.
Yes. I understand, and I appreciate you giving me some levity here. I know I'm moving away from the actual subject at hand, which is the zone change itself, but have concerns that if some of these concerns aren't vetted out now, what guarantees will we have in the future that we're going to get the product that we want and need for the city? So that's my main reason for asking these questions. I'm sorry for taking up so much time. That's all of my questions for now. Thank you very much for your patience in answering them.
One quick question for you, because it is the property line of him at San Jacinto. When the CUP comes in, are we notifying San Jacinto 500 feet within San Jacinto city limits? Because I know there's some residential or there's some apartments there that's right across the street.
Yes, they are notified. Yes.
Any other
Do we know noise?
Well, a noise study will be prepared as part of the project.
questions?
If I may, Chair?
Uh,
If I may add one comment?
Oh, I was just asking a question about the 500 feet, but I don't think. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. I just want to also mention, and though it's information that I gathered earlier this week, I did see that in 2019, Pacific Mobile Structures was the city of Menifee is one of their top 25 revenue producers. And so, it'd be nice to also have that information provided by the applicant.
Thank you, Director Monique. If not, we will receive and file determination of use. And we don't need to vote on that though. Just receive and file. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving on to item 6A, work study item on the City of Hemet General Plan updates. Director Monique.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, this is an overview of our safety element and environmental justice element, and this is intended to be provided to the Planning Commission ahead of time. This has been in the works for quite some time now. We contracted with Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. They are our consulting firm that has been contracted to facilitate the housing element update, the environmental justice update, and a new environmental, the safety element and the environmental justice element that's new to the city. So they have, they are in the process right now. We received approval by council to adopt the housing element. Since then, our consulting firm, Kimley Horn, has been in the rigorous process of certification with HCD. We're getting close. We're getting really close. We did receive comments just recently that they've given us a couple more conditions and said that if you comply with these specific items, you'll be certified. So we're gonna work on getting those completed. So there are 2 remaining items that also need to be completed. One being the safety element update, and the second is the environmental justice element. And I'll kind of briefly go over that tonight. Also in your packet was just some preliminary draft documents of the safety element, what was updated, and also a brand new environmental justice element. So you have opportunity to make a difference in these documents, and I encourage you to provide your comments, and you not necessarily have to provide everything this evening, but just to give you a head start on it, because we will be bringing this back as a public hearing. Kimley Horn will be here that evening to answer your questions and to facilitate these policy documents. So the first document is the safety element update. So we have an existing safety element, and it was last revised in 2012. It is part of the City of Hemet's general plan. The general plan is a framework required by state law to have, and so in prior planning commission meetings, I believe our city attorney provided an overview of what our general plan components include, and one of those components is our safety element. In 2018, the state passed Senate Bill 1035, which requires the public safety element to review not less than every 8 years and revised as necessary to address climate change and resiliency strategies. And the intention is to identify new information relating to flood, fire, and other climate hazards not available during the previous revision of the safety element. The safety element addresses risks and hazards such as floods, droughts, and earthquakes and landslides, and it establishes goals, policies, and objectives to guide current and future safety mitigation strategies to reduce risk. So I did want to include kind of what we've been working on so far. In 2022, we held public workshops with the community to receive feedback, and we have those community workshops available on our city's website. In Community Development Planning Division, we have the Environmental Justice page, and that provides a video of that meeting and an overview of the safety element and environmental justice element. It is also available in Spanish to provide access to our community. And in addition, Kimley Horn has been working with our city stakeholders, our police department, our fire department of life safety, fire department, and CAL FIRE to look through our safety element to see what amendments would be appropriate at this time. So a new requirement under California law that safety elements consider due to changing climate. California law now requires updated safety elements to consider risks and hazards due to a changing climate. Is to provide, an assessment is required to provide informed research of current city policies, like the City of Hemet Climate Action Plan, as well as relies on tools such as the Cal Enviro Screen 4.0. It's a tool that is provided. It's a program that identifies where we are at risk, where communities are at risk for being considered disadvantaged in some form. A climate vulnerability assessment is also required as part of this action. The vulnerability of the city's population is evaluated, our infrastructure and functions to climate change induced effects that are both chronic and acute stressors, such as high heat days, extreme storms leading to downed power lines and road closures, change in rain patterns leading to increased flooding events, as well as drought leading to water shortages, air quality degradation, and agricultural decrease. Some of these indicators, there's primary and secondary hazards that are evaluated, or stressors for the city. So we're looking at air quality, flooding, wildfires. Secondary stressors would include public health effects, erosion, landslide, food insecurity, access to resources. In a review of the existing climate resistance policies, will include the requirement for new development to minimize consumption of water and resources and encourage service providers to provide green leadership by incorporating alternative energy products in their facilities and conservation practices in their operations, such as using reclaimed water at parks, golf courses, where feasible, and other strategies. And now switching gears to the environmental justice element. The environmental justice element is a new requirement that was established under State Law 1000, SB 1000. It's required when the general plan is updated and when in consideration of disadvantaged areas to be considered in the policies. It identifies communities that are disproportionately burdened by multiple sources of pollution uses, and it establishes goals to address the unique compounded health risks in a disadvantaged community by decreasing pollution exposure, increasing community assets and engagement, and improving overall health. Prioritizes improvements and programs that meets the needs of a disadvantaged community. Hemet is part of the Cal Enviro Screen data tool, which was what I was trying to refer to earlier. The data tool is developed by Cal EPA's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. It is used to promote compliance with environmental laws. There are 12 indicators related to pollution burden, and those are evaluated as part of this assessment. And through that assessment, it was determined that there are a few areas in the city, highlighted in red. When those, the higher the percentage, the more the more opportunity to identify a disadvantaged community. So in this case, here in the map, there are 4 tracks in the city that have qualified under that criteria and have been included as part of the assessment and analysis of the new environmental justice element. So with that, the overarching goals of the environmental justice element is to promote health and safety, is to promote good opportunities for that are already in alignment with our general plan, but also it's its own amendment, it's its own element. And it identifies its own goals, policies, and objectives. And this is an opportunity for us to incorporate the type of health and safety goals that we want to memorialize for the city. And then with those goals, policies, and objectives, we establish strategies to implement that. And in many cases, we are already identifying those, and we are already working towards those goals through, for example, the Safe and Clean Streets Initiative. And more recently, the improvement to transportation through RTA Go microtransit pilot program, those kind of examples. But there's also other opportunities to provide fresh food options for the community, improvements to bike lanes and transportation, as well as possibly even a moratorium on certain land uses that perhaps we may want to consider for health and safety. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions, and also any changes or preliminary input that you have, I would really greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Monique. Does the commissioners have questions to Director Monique and staff? I believe start with Tanya, Commissioner Clark.
First of all, improving public facilities, including the city of Hemet's own public buildings, is that correct? So there are a couple of fire department buildings that will require bringing up to a better standard, especially if we have a catastrophic. We can't have the building go down. And I do think there are some fire buildings that need to be looked at for public. It's for, I mean, that's where a lot of people congregate in an emergency. It's where you go to get information, especially the satellites and such. So that's something. I know the disadvantage, the promote safe and sanitary homes. We have a lot of blight homes. We have a lot of out of the area owners renting, and there is some real substandard living conditions. That, to me, there are people all the time that I hear saying, well, you know, don't rent from this rental agency because they never fix anything. But we have to. This has to be part of the environmental justice. They have to have a better, the renters and those that are poverty or below poverty level can't be taken advantage of like they are. And I know, I see it. There are a lot of owners that the city needs to say, hey, pony up and make these to our standards. And I think finally, asking the public after COVID might be a pretty good approach also. No one knew where to go during COVID to get information, get a test. I mean, there were people always asking questions, where can I get this and where can I get that? Where can I get some assistance? And I think we need to reevaluate that also, especially in the public safety section. That's my 2 cents.
Like, I just have a question or a comment. It might be kind of weird. I noticed that the 4 areas that were highlighted in red, I noticed that they had pollutions as far as diesel particulates, ozone, such and such. But all those areas were right along Florida, which is a state highway. Do we get any input or any assistance from the state for that, or is that just something that Hammett's left alone to deal with? Just a quick question,
Yeah,
comment.
that's a great question that we can explore. So is the question for air quality, is there perhaps if there's exposure to air quality, because it's on a state highway, we're identifying now what are the issues, and what I'm hearing that could be potentially an issue. We could explore that. And is there grant funding from the state that would provide us some program to reduce greenhouse gases, to reduce the ozone particulates and air quality emissions? That's a good question, yes, and I have noted it.
My first comment is more of a comment than anything. It's a little nitpicky, sorry about that, but on page 10 of the environmental justice, when we're discussing census tract 434.05, I believe there may be a typo
Yes,
where I referred to 48,000 residents. I
yes,
think
thank
maybe
you.
it should be more like 4,800.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. It would be surprising to find half of the residents of Hammett living in one census tract. All 4 of these census tracts identified in the environmental justice element as being disadvantaged discuss the fact that they are water stressed. They're currently stressed, and by 2050, they are going to be very stressed in the 90 percentile. I'm curious to know, of those 4 census tracts, who's the water service provider? I believe it's Lake Hemet, but I'm not certain about that. Lake Hemet should have an urban water management plan that discusses provision of water service. And I'm wondering if that has been taken into account in putting together the environmental justice element as it relates to provision of water service. I would hope that Lake Hemet has a plan in place to avoid these census tracts from hitting the 90+ percentile mark for water stressors.
Yes, and so I did take a look to see which water purveyors are within these census tracts, and it's all 3. It's Lake Hemet Municipal, and it's also City of Hemet and Eastern Municipal Water. So we can look at all 3 and see how that would impact these.
Okay, hopefully between the 3 water agencies, we can continue to provide good service to those fine folks in those tracts. That was all I had. Thank you.
All right, just a couple of them. One in page 28 in the picture. I know if we're putting red lines through some of the kind of explanation what the picture is, but the red line, it states the city encourages the reinforcement and retention of these historical sites or historical structures. Is there a reason why we're removing that? Because when we continue on, there is, from 2010, there are 11 URNs remaining in downtown, and they're giving disclosure of all those addresses. And that's been 13 years, and some have not even been touched or barely touched. So, that's a big risk. That's a big risk for downtown when we're talking about safety element and safety of fire, earthquake, all the above. Who is being held accountable from the city to keep on top of these projects?
Thank you. Yeah, so it looks like it should have been, it looks like there was a strikeout, but then there is actually new language in this, section that should have been incorporated, that is covering up the text. So, yes, so we absolutely, want to ensure that we are looking at that, from a building code standpoint. We do have a historic, community, in these structures. We are considering that, when it comes through, the building department. So it's the Department of Life Safety currently, that heads the building, side of the process. But they would, also be looking at, if there's going to be revitalization, of these structures, that is something that we're going to have to look at, for retrofitting.
So, because I also know one of the business owners down there is a part of the area where has his shop is actually sinking. The window is starting to come out from the frame. There's a gap, and he's brought it up to the city many of times, and the city just kind of turns their shoulder, which, if we have a bad earthquake, a severe earthquake, who knows, a part of that structure can collapse or wherever that hole is underneath, why it's sinking. But it's downtown really needs to be checked out when it comes to the safety element of everything. And the other one is have we contacted CAL FIRE at all about our Hemet Ryan Airport? Because we used to have CAL FIRE there as one of the stations, and now it's just helicopter and the sheriff primarily, but no longer much of a runway use. Have we reached out to CAL FIRE at all and tried to reopen Hemet Ryan again as an emergency resource to use?
That's a good question. We have been coordinating, on this document with CAL FIRE. So yes, they do, base firefighting aircraft at the Hemet Ryan Airport, to provide rapid response for wildfires through Riverside County, northern San Diego and parts of Orange, San Bernardino, and Los Angeles, as well as air tanker, air tactical group supervisor, and 2 air tankers. But, is the question, are they going to reopen it for, for other purposes?
Well, just for fire purposes, because we used to, planes used to fly out there all the time when we had fires back in the 90s and 80s. And then now it's just completely gone. And why is that? Why is CAL FIRE not necessarily using that as a base?
Okay, we can follow up on that. As I understand, they are. However, we can just confirm that. If you've observed that they haven't been using it, we can check to see.
I think I have one more, and it's just not even, it's more for public. On page 67 at 6.8.5, senior and disabled occupied home repair. I read that, but I don't know much about it. Is there something that
yeah.
can be known to public? Because I guess that there's funds for the public if they apply for it, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We're in the process of applying for, the CDBG, for FY 24-25 funding. We currently have, through the Housing Division, we operate the Senior Home Repair Program, as well as the ADA Ramp and Lift Program for disabled. So we do have two distinctive programs for the elderly, as well as for those that meet the minimum income limits. And we would certainly be happy to assist those who would like to apply. And we encourage the community to apply for these programs.
Is there a way I can have that emailed, the link, so I can kind of pass that on to those that might need it?
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions? Commissioner
I
Clark?
do, now that you bring this up, the sleeping giant here in Hemet or in the valley is Park Hill. Park Hill is a border to a large portion of the city of Hemet. It is a tender. Personally, we had contacted the city of San Jacinto. They're looking at it as, because of the buckwheat being a habitat, and they don't want to mess with it. If you drive by there, it's a tender waiting to happen. Can we get some discussion with the city of San Jacinto on maybe a better way, maybe a transitional sheep, goat, I don't know, but not something that totally slicks it off. But one cigarette, I'm telling you, thrown out the window, and especially right around Hewitt, it's just a tinder waiting to happen. And that makes it impossible for, if it were to come and just storm in during a Santa Ana, I think we have a problem.
Yes, and so the area that is being referred to by Commissioner Clark is in a very high fire hazard severity zone, and is an area that we have identified. It is on our although it's in the city of San Jacinto, that area in general.
Any other questions for staff? Nope. All right, thank you for your presentation, Director Monique, and that's just a work study, so there's nothing else to do with it. All right, now we're moving on to Agenda 7A, City Attorney Reports.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll wait for Director Monique to fill us in on item 7C, future agenda items.
Okay, so we have several future agenda items for you.
Community Development Reports, I'm sorry. I skipped one.
Oh.
Community Development Report for Director Monique.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Now moving on to item 7C, future agenda.
Thank you. So we do have coming before you a site development review for JD Fields Warehouse and Office. It is a 25,000 square foot facility. So that will be coming toward coming to the commission in the next few months, as well as a conditional use permit for Freddy's Restaurant. There will also be an extension of time requested for the Holiday Inn Express. They did receive approval almost 24 months ago, and now are in a position, they're working their way through the process with the city. However, there are some drainage considerations that they have to, they would have to revise some of their drainage plans to provide appropriate drainage as it relates to drainage that flows from the Hampton Inn. So due to that minor minor delay, they are going to be coming back to the commission just to request an extension of time so that they have enough time to so they have enough time to get through these and obtain the grading permits. And then, of course, we have the safety element, the environmental justice element, and we do also have other projects in the pipeline that we're working on that we will provide more update on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Monique. And item 7D, Planning Commissioner Reports, Director Monique.
Commissioner Clark?
I do have a request. With this safety element in environmental justice, do you think that we could, with the council or whomever, whatever commission, get OES the police chief, fire chief, kind of give us a State of the Union kind of thing, where they're sitting and are they ready? Especially with the OES. I was reading the ancillary services. Animals in a emergency is identified as Ramona animal. I've heard nothing but up and down and up and down. Are they really the source? Are they prepared to take in animals during I mean, this is kind of my questioning is if you have to evacuate and you have dogs and Ramona is the ancillary service and they're closed, do you see where I'm going? You know, it seems like maybe not all the components are there and maybe we could just get a little reassurance during the OES. Where do we go? If water is needed and all of those emergency, and have it be public friendly so that everybody can listen and hear and get, because we could very easily have something. And I'm ready to help my neighbors, but is the city ready? That's my question.
We can certainly invite our police chief and fire chief to perhaps provide us with a session, an informational session. And yeah, to identify what are the plans and to help provide us with more education on emergency services and evacuation. Sorry, Commissioner Ochoa.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Okay. Vice Chair Papp.
Nothing to report this evening. I was just very pleased to see the official ribbon cutting ceremony for the skate park. I have 3 grandchildren at home, looking forward to taking them.
Thank you. Chair Beamsterfer.
The only thing I have to report is, I know the city council had a special meeting. I don't know if you were watching any of that, but they had a kind of a rush special meeting to try to change a special election to try to change our districts to 4 instead of 5 and have the city vote for its own mayor versus a council voting for their own mayor. And the proposal came from a citizen more than anything, but it was costing over $300,000 of taxpayer dollars to move this thing forward. And I'm very happy to hear that we're saving our money and keeping things the way they are, and looking forward to what's to come. Other than that, nothing else to report. With there being no further business, this meeting will be adjourned to the next planning commission meeting on January the 2nd, 2024 at 6 p.m.
I apologize. Chair Beamsterfer, if the commission is okay, I would like to recommend that we cancel the January 2nd meeting due to the holidays.
And the next meeting will be on which day is it?
16th, is it 17th?
The
16th?
the next, yes, so the next planning commission meeting would be scheduled for Tuesday, January 16th.
Does the commission agree to that?
I don't believe I have any conflict.
Okay. With there being no further business, this meeting will be adjourned to next planning commission meeting on January the 16th at 2024 at 6 p.m.